Combine ongoing, but we've seen all of the defensive players work out. We've seen them in shorts. We've seen heights, weights, measurements. Who are the combine winners? Who are the risers? Who are the standouts on the D-line, linebacker, and defensive backs at the 2024 Scouting Combine? Coming at you right now.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at VD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We love all the everydayers out there, and we love it even more when y'all are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. This episode of P&W is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I want to begin, Matt, with one standout on the defensive side of the ball from the combine that should have been in the edge defensive line category, but he worked out with linebackers. And we talked a little bit about the D lineman on Thursday on our last episode. And apologies if you wanted a Friday show. Matt was traveling back from Indy, and so we're giving you this very special edition Saturday episode. By the way,
doesn't happen often.
Yeah, it feels a little odd to be in this desk right now on a Saturday. Usually the day I'm not doing podcast stuff, and but I'm excited to be watching the combine. We're seeing the offensive guys start going as well. But Dallas Turner was working out with the linebackers. So if you're wondering why we didn't talk about him with the D lineman and some of the performances on the last episode, it's because he had LB 40 something on his shirt, and he was dynamic athletically, as a lot of people probably expected at the combine. But why is he working out with the linebackers? Well, he's only 6'2 3/4 and 247 pounds, Matt. So he's probably not going to be for everyone. But if you're okay with a smaller edge player in whatever scheme you run, and then you see arm length of 34 3/8, which is really long for a guy who's 6'2, under 6'3, you see a 4.46 official 40-yard dash time, you see 40.5-inch vertical, you see 10.7 broad jump. I mean, just ungodly explosiveness and athletic ability, undersized albeit. So maybe he's not for everyone, Matt, but maybe the biggest winner on the defensive side of the ball was Dallas Turner, and potentially the first defensive player off the board in the 2024 NFL draft.
Yeah, he's worth noting because one of the goofy things, first of all, with the combine is once in a while you'll have a defensive tackle type working out in the D-end room. You definitely always have a couple D-end edge players like Turner working out with 220-pound linebackers. So we all make the mistake, especially the day after or day of that the numbers come out. You go to each position group, you sort, and wow, he's not near the top of his group or he's near the bottom. Well, he's different than everybody else. And one of the reasons is they don't want any of the groups to have way too many numbers. And, some of the front seven players can be a little ambiguous of what position to stick them in. But trust me, the NFL catches it. I mean, it's not like they're pulling one over on the evaluators out there,
Right. Yeah. The NFL knows what position group they're on their board. And their board really matters. Yeah. But if you're wondering why we didn't mention Dallas Turner, it's because he didn't run with the D lineman. He ran with the linebackers, and just a phenomenal workout there. It looks the part. I mean, he got up in weight, Matt. Well, when you look at his tape, he wasn't even 247. Like, there's times where you're like, is this guy a safety walking down? You're like, oh no, that's Dallas Turner there. He's long-legged. He's not the biggest guy. So I'm fascinated to see which team falls in love with him, which team likes him. I'm sure those teams that run a little more odd front and don't mind having stand-up type rushers will like him a little bit more in the draft, and that'll probably be his landing spot because they'll have him way up high on their boards.
Yeah, and he is very much in the mix for first overall defensive player. I think he's fighting Latu and Verse and maybe a couple others as first edge defender. They did the same thing to his teammate, Chris Braswell from Alabama, who also had a phenomenal workout. But now if you go to NFL.com and you sort it by position, all the edges are together, and everyone made a huge fuss, rightfully so, about Chop Robinson, but Turner's was better. And Braswell wasn't even far off. I mean, just in terms of 40s, Turner, Robinson, Kamara, who's an interesting player from Colorado State, Verse, who might have had a better workout than all of them when you combine his power, thickness, body type, and then Braswell was right after that in terms of the edge 40 times guys. But great day for Turner. I think he's going to be in the mix for first defensive player taken, although maybe some of these corners will make some noise there too.
Good point about Jared Verse too, because
no one's talking about him.
He weight wise, he wasn't that big. He displays a little more power on film, but just under 6'4", 254 for him. He ran 4.58, which was a crazy time. And as well from Alabama, he was 6'3" and 3/8, 251. Ran a 4.6 flat as well. So like these guys are all very similar, and the entire defensive side of the ball, Matt, is shrinking. And some of these wide receivers,
you're right.
Some of these wide receiver weigh-ins too, and it's like 6'1", 180. Nope, you're 5'11 and a half, 163. Like they're not even trying to get heavy, because it used to be, you could take an inch off of everybody's listed height, but then add 10 pounds. The guys aren't adding the 10 pounds anymore.
No, you're right. And I think it's all about speed. It's all about 40 times. And it's the oldest trick in the book, but let's be fast at either my pro day or my combine and probably not run at the other one. Probably smarter to do it here because it's apples to apples. And if you're not fast, you at least get another shot. Although your home turf is probably faster and a little bit more generous, but still.
I know Nick Saban's a great coach. Will Anderson last year. You got Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell. He can recruit a little bit too. I mean,
he can recruit a little bit.
Some freaky athletes coming out of Alabama every single year. We'll see how that continues with a new head coach in charge of the Alabama Crimson Tide there. Any other standouts on the D-line you want to talk about before we move on to some off-ball players, off-ball linebackers, and a ton of fast defensive backs as well?
We've dug into Chop pretty good already. Good for him, but I don't know. I feel like we're counting that twice. I mean, he's a speed player. He's a fastball off the edge, and he ran fast. So, great.
When he first worked out, it's like, oh, man, he really helped himself. And then you see the other workouts come in, and then you see Dallas Turner, and you're like, okay, well, there's still some guys in front of him. And, production-wise, he solidified his stock. Great workout for him. He did what he needed to do, still in that late first-round range, though, probably.
I think Braden Fisk from Florida State needs to be mentioned. I mean, he makes a lot of plays on tape. I mean, there's some stereotyping here, but he is a extreme hustler, playing hard type. But his testing was the best of all the defensive tackles, basically. Oh, yeah. But he has really short arms. I mean, like dangerously short arms.
Yeah, 31-inch arm length. I believe, for Fisk, and the quickness, the short area burst. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up in the NFL draft, but absolutely helped himself and did everything he could there. We did have a little conversation off the air about
I want to mention two guys.
Darius Robinson from Missouri, 6'5", 285. Didn't really blow anybody away though. Not a great 10-yard split on his 4.95 40-yard dash. He played a lot of interior defensive line, solid vertical though at 35 inches for a 285 pounder. He played a lot of interior earlier on at Missouri. He played more edge, and then was really awesome as an end at the Senior Bowl. But I don't know if he has that athleticism that teams are looking for as an end. So is he a tweener? Is he a big end? Do you want to add 10 more pounds to him and put him back in the interior?
Yeah, and I would also lump in Oregon's Brandon Dorius. I mean, he ran a 4.85. Darius Robinson ran a 4.95. But they're listed with the edges, and that's a little unfair, but it's not totally inaccurate. I mean, they're big edges. I mean, they're big, heavy guys. But if you put them with the D tackles, everyone will be raving about, wow, they're at the top of the list of the D tackles, and they're the most athletic guys out there. So that's a team-to-team thing where they would line them up, and that's one of the strengths of Dorius and Robinson is they are multi-gap defensive linemen.
All right, next, let's talk about some more linebackers and cornerbacks, some winners from the 2024 NFL Scouting Combine next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to play with if your bet wins. And you can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and tons more. And, of course, if you don't want to bet on the NBA, you can bet on the NHL, Major League Baseball, snooker, auto racing, combat sports. You name the sport, you can find action at FanDuel. And of course, you can still bet on NFL football futures for the 2024 season. And of course, NFL draft props. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. As far as the off-ball linebackers go at the combine, Matt, one guy stole the show, but something I didn't realize about him that you dropped on me, that some information you got while you were there in Indianapolis, is Peyton Wilson, NC State, just a hair under 6'4", 233 pounds. He was flying in the 40, short arm guy, by the way, 30 and a half inches. Not a great wingspan at all for someone who's 6'4". But 4.43 in the 40, he was scooting 1.54 in the 10-yard split, 34.5-inch vertical. So really looked awesome athletically and was absolutely scooting. But how many surgeries did you say he had?
Yeah, he's really interesting because I think the A&M kid, Edgerrin Cooper, who had a very good day as well, is the best off-the-ball linebacker in this class. Golson from Michigan's right there too. But Peyton Wilson, his tape is as good as anybody in the country. I think he won the Butkus or whatever the off-the-ball linebacker award is at NC State. He's tall, he's short arms. His testing was phenomenal. But Dane Brugler's like the best in the business, especially with doing background stuff and where they came from. He said this guy's had 12 surgeries in his career. Like, I knew that there were medical questions. I didn't realize it was that extreme. But of course, he was asked about it when he went to the podium. And his response was something along the lines of, I believe that NFL teams believe that those things are behind me. But maybe that's a glass half full way of looking at things.
He needed double belief in that statement.
Yeah.
He had to believe it, and he has to believe that the NFL teams believe it.
So, I believe it, and I believe they believe, and we all believe.
I think they probably just aren't telling you what kind of dots are next to your name on their draft board. There's probably a red dot there.
The red flags.
And so we'll see with Peyton Wilson, and maybe that means teams just get a bargain of a player later in the draft. Like, I don't even know where to put him, because linebackers are hard enough to stack on draft boards, because I think fewer and fewer teams are wanting to draft them in the first round period. And, is he a third round guy? Does medical drop him even further than that? Is he a second rounder? Is he the one of the top couple off the board at linebacker? Do any linebackers go in the first round? I don't see him very often in these mock drafts. So, yeah, this is a tough one with this class of linebackers, because there's not that slam dunk guy that everyone loves that they're going to be drafting, super early.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the best I think you can root for is second round, probably third with the medicals, or if he's in the fifth or sixth, then the medicals are terrible. And just to pull back the curtain, I mean, the conversations you have to have. Actually, what happens is they all these teams put their boards together before the combine, subject to change, and then you come in there after the combine, like, man, where did Peyton Wilson go? We had him on the board, and now he's in the recheck pile. It's like, oh man, because the docs walk in and say, nope. I mean, and you're gonna fight the doctors. So you're right. I mean, there's some day two linebackers I like, and there was 3 or 4 that I didn't know much about that tested really well, that the more homework I've done, I've been intrigued with, but it's not a super rich at the top of the draft linebacker class.
Getting to 230 pounds is big. And look, this is another position that's shrinking, but you don't want 210-pound linebackers either for a lot of teams. So Edgerrin Cooper nailed it. 6'2", 230. He ran 4.51. Great 10-yard split at 1.54, 34.5-inch vertical, just checking all the boxes for Cooper.
Yeah, very explosive. I think he's the best of the group. Although Golson, who didn't work out, is also quite impressive. But they're early day two type of guys. A couple names I just want to throw out there, this so people hear them for the first time, is Temple's Jordan McGee, Kentucky's Trevin Wallace, and Washington has a very difficult name to pronounce, but I'll give my try. A Defon Olifacio. All those guys had very good testing, and the homework I did on all of them is that they're flash players or better at their respective schools, pretty productive, especially Wallace and McGee. So, this time of year with my draft prep, start to find out some names and some mid-round picks that are intriguing to me.
I'll throw one more linebacker out there who solid combine, not spectacular, but 6'1" and a half, 234 pounds, ran a 4.64. That's North Carolina's Cedric Gray. He's at Senior Bowl, and he's a guy that 35.5-inch vertical, 10-foot broad jump as well. He's a guy that Jim Nagy, the executive director, I don't know what his title is, he's in charge of the Senior Bowl. He's been pumping him up quite a bit, and my comp for Cedric Gray is T1000. You remember Terminator 2, the Terminator, that is like liquid metal. The way he runs, that's the way he runs when he's in space trying to chase down ball carriers. Kind of a long-legged stride, and he gets after it and he gets moving. So Cedric Gray, really solid group of sort of mid-round types, I think, in this class.
Yeah, it's funny because Cedric Gray is someone I'm pretty familiar with because I think he is going to go maybe end of round 2, round 3. I mean, he's a day 2 guy all day long. But when we were at the Combine, we were all getting a kick out of it because he has this huge Troy Polamalu tattoo. I'm like, oh, he's going to be a Steeler. Either after this, maybe that after his first contract, but someday he's going to be wearing black and gold.
There you go. All right. Yep. I like it. Future Steeler, Cedric Gray, North Carolina linebacker. Let's talk defensive backs. And there are a ton of them to talk about. And I think it has to start with the guy who's running 4.2s, right, man? So let's go to Clemson and Nate Wiggins. 4.28, it looks like, is the official 40 time for Nate Wiggins. And man, we start talking about guys that are shrinking. And he's tall too, 6'1" and 3/8. I think he was listed at 6'2". So Nate Wiggins, 6'1" and 3/8, 173. He's really skinny out there, especially when you got the compression, outfit on. Short arms, but he's tall. So just a weird body type. I don't know what to do with Nate Wiggins. I don't know if he really even helped himself running 4.28 because you already knew he was fast. 6'1" and 3/8, only 173 pounds, short, 30.5-inch arms. You want like 31, 32. If you're looking for a ideal defensive back that you're drafting in the first round, 4.28 official 40, 159 split, 36-inch vertical, 10.7 broad jump. Obviously the 40-yard dash is the real headliner there. And it's one of the top 10 times in the last decade. Nate Wiggins, how much did he help himself? He was already in the late first round area of mock drafts. Does he get artificially pushed up? Does the tape match the workout numbers? Just a really weird body type. 6'1", 173, short arms though at 6'1", but then 4.28. I don't know what to think about this.
Yeah, interesting player because he runs the 4.28 and then he's done because he hurt his hip flexor running the 40. So didn't get to do other drills. I bet his other drills would have been spectacular, W drills and that type of hip flip stuff. And because he's very explosive, he's very athletic. He was leaner, as you mentioned, than I even thought. And maybe that's just so he could run the 4.28. But you watch the tape, tremendous cover guy, amazing athlete. But he's also, let's just say he's not a glass eater in the run game or getting off blocks either. I mean, he's a little bit of a throwback. And in today's NFL, more so than I can remember, you got to be able to tackle or stick your face in the fan at corner. So I think every team will look at him differently.
It'll be interesting. So he'll show up at his pro day, not run, because the 4.28 is now in history, but then he'll show up at 180, right? And so then he's got that
hip flexor. You might as well hit the weight for now and don't move at all, right?
Yeah, don't move a muscle. Just peanut butter protein shakes.
Yeah. That's where I usually play at, guys. Yeah.
The guy that helped himself maybe more than Wiggins and maybe the prospect in the entire draft, Matt, that's helped himself the most in the pre-draft run-up when you're talking about All-Star Bowl, Senior Bowl, plus Combine, Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. He hit the 6-foot mark at the Combine, 6 feet and 1/8, 195. So he's got 22 pounds on Nate Wiggins and longer arms, threw down a 4.33 40-yard dash, better 10-yard split, 151, 38-inch vertical, better vertical than Nate Wiggins as well. Home run winner of the pre-draft process right now is Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo.
Yeah, and maybe he's the first defensive player off the board. I mean, I think that's not insane because no one ever threw at him after a while at Toledo. They never played press coverage. Well, he was great in press coverage, and when challenged at the Senior Bowl, he's killed the combine. He's a bigger, thicker guy. And how about this? I mean, when he was at the podium, somebody asked him, and you get some goofy questions. They're like, who's the best player that ever came out of the MAC? And there's some great ones. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger, Jason Taylor. And he's like, me. So, like he is a confident, cocky corner, which I don't mind.
More standout defensive backs from the NFL Scouting Combine next. That segment is brought to you by BetterHelp Online Therapy. A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. And the question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is first to know what's important to you and then make it a priority. Therapy can help you find exactly what matters to you so you can do more of it. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your specific schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire. You get matched with a licensed therapist, and sometimes you don't hit it off right away with the therapist, and that's okay. You can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Decamarion Richardson, Mississippi State, 6'2", 188. So another taller, slender corner, longer armed guy, though, 4.34, 40. And get this, a 1.48, 10-yard split, which is smoking. So this guy, when you watch him run, if you just watched them all run and you said who was the fastest, I might have said Decamarion Richardson was the fastest because you could just tell how much
eyeball test
was beating up with those strides.
Yep, 100%. So he's a name I need to go back to the drawing board with. I'm finding more and more that I think this day 2 group of corners is a lot better than I thought. And maybe there's 5 or so in the first round. Probably should mention Kool-Aid. He had the Jones fracture. I don't know how much that'll drop him. That's a conversation for the other half of at the end of the show. But
by the way, Kool-Aid, Jones fracture not great. He's supposed to be ready, and we'll see if he runs at his pro day or if he never runs at all. That'll definitely hurt him because teams want times on corners for sure.
And his speed's what everyone's worried about.
Yeah, they know he's athletic. They just don't know, right. They want to be able to stack him up athletically a little bit more. So that'll absolutely hurt him. But on top of that, he was listed at 6'1". He was 5'11 and a half. So he's quite a bit in the height category, like a lot of these guys did.
Not a phenomenal day for him. And you wonder, will he run at all? Because I'll be ready for my pro day, but you probably aren't going to be in tip-top shape and being able to, do all the workouts between now and then. And speed's not your calling card to begin with. So don't go run when you're not your best, even at an event that's not your best,
Better to not run than run slow.
Right. Yeah. At least make them, use their imagination.
I will say for Kool-Aid, though, we talk about all these skinny corners at 5'11 and a half, he's still 199. So nearly 200 pounds there, 32-inch arms, long arms too. So
he's not bashful. He'll tackle and Saban, know.
Yeah. Any other standouts in the defensive backfield that you want to talk about? Good or bad?
Melton, I thought was really good. Phillips, Pritchard, Jackson, the big corner from Oregon. Sainristil is a really impressive slot plus corner from Michigan. So a lot of these day 2 guys that I'm throwing out there, I think people need to become more and more aware with. Jones from Boston College is a guy that has really grown on me quite a bit as well. So I've been really studying that group quite a bit more, and it's pretty impressive. Hardy is a guy I've been familiar with from Penn State. He's a slot, but he's athletic, tough. So there's some not household names that I think are pretty good prospects at the corner position.
Looking really deep at corner.
Yeah, sure. Cam Hart.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned Max Melton out of Rutgers, 5'11", 187. He ran 4.39. DJ James, Auburn, 5'11 and a half. A lot of these guys very similar size, a little lighter, 175 for DJ James, but ran 4.42. You mentioned the Michigan nickel.
Yeah, Sainristil.
He's going to put him in Put him in Los Angeles at the Chargers in your mock.
Oh, he's gonna have a bolt on his helmet. Yeah.
No way that Harbaugh doesn't want to bring him. The way he hits, the way he defends the run, 5'9.5", 182. He's not going to go super early either, but ran 4.47, so you don't worry about him athletically in the slot. I mean, he's like prototype nickel, and he's a guy that Jim Harbaugh loves.
And I love them in the drill work, very under control, fundamentally sound. The team captain on one of the best defenses out there. So, yeah, I think he's how much do you value a nickel? Well, he's about as good a one as you see. So that screams round 2 to me.
There's a lot of fast guys, but a few more to point out that maybe did not help themselves at the combine is, and this might be one of those conversations about, which guys are in the right room, in the wrong room, and maybe Syracuse DB Isaiah Johnson should have been in the safety room because that's where he's going to play in the NFL. 6'3", 205. And you're like, all right, cool. And then he runs 4.64. Well, you're 100% a safety. Nobody's going to have you to play cornerback,
whether you like it or not. And he was clunky in the drills and didn't look like he belonged in that group.
How about Kalen King as well from Penn State? He's a player a lot of people really liked, and he threw down a 4.61, so that definitely doesn't hurt him. He's 5'11.5", 191 too, so it's not like he's some big we'll just move him to safety type of guy.
Yeah, and he has kind of fallen off a cliff, to be honest with you, because a lot of people studying Joey Porter Jr. last year at Penn State thought King might be the better player on the other side, and then he had a down year, terrible Senior Bowl, bad combine. Maybe he's a safety.
Another guy that's getting the safety treatment, Cooper DeJean, did not work out. He's had that injury late in the year. 6 feet 1.5", 203. He's going to work out at the Iowa Pro Day. That's going to be a huge one for him.
Yeah, and if you're interested, I mean, he's a light-skinned fella, so a lot of people will tell you he's a safety. I don't see him that way at all.
I got a nickname, and I'm going to run this by you first. I have not dropped this on anybody, so this is a fresh one for the folks out there. I'm just workshopping it. So he's he's a white corner. A lot of people are saying, maybe the best fit for him is someone that moves around because he's really good as a nickel guy, and then can come up and stop the run. But you can play him outside, you can play him back, you could do a lot of different things with him. And so the immediate comp that comes to mind for me is bigger corner that can do nickel stuff and move him around is Jalen Ramsey. So how about, since he's so pale, how about Palin Ramsey?
It's funny. We love DeJean on our show, hoping he gets to 20. I mean, tough guy, slot, safety, outside corner. And the two names we threw out there, which are extreme, were Jalen Ramsey and Rod Woodson, who's, and I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but I mean, that kind of moves like him. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you YouTube DeJean, like his basketball highlights and things like that, you will not worry about his athletic ability. Palin's a good one. I like it. Palin Ramsey works.
Palin Ramsey. I do want to say, I think he's going to be there at 20. My guy, Eric Crocker, I trust Eric Crocker, my co-host on Locked On 49ers, former defensive back and former corner. And he was a bigger corner himself. He was, the 6'1", 6'2" type of corner. And he knows the type. And they played so much zone. And one of the things that you hope you can comp into is someone like Richard Sherman, bigger corner, great in cover 3 type defense, is good. When it comes to man coverage and you see some of the breaks he makes on the ball, I think he might get dinged a little bit by some teams. There's some stuff on tape. You're like, man, okay, if you play zone heavy, that's the team that's going to draft Cooper DeJean. I don't know if you're just going to let him.
He doesn't move like Wiggins or
lockdown guy. Short area quicks. He's a power player. He's really explosive. And when you talk about his dunk highlights, they're power dunks, but he's like a 2-footed jumper, and it's a power dunk. It's not like I don't even know what a good
Vince Carter.
Vince, there's a difference in the NBA when you see guys jumping off of one leg versus 2 legs. It's explosive power, linear. I'd be really interested in especially the lateral drills, right? The agilities for him at Iowa's Pro Day, because there's something that, it's not just because he's white that people are saying maybe they like him better as an interior defensive back, nickel, safety. So I'll just throw that out there. And so we'll see where he ends up going. I think he'll be there for the Steelers at 20. We'll see.
No, I can see that too, especially with the workout and injury situation.
Absolutely. Speaking of safeties, anybody else you want to highlight here in the safety class before we go? It's an interesting group of safeties. There's kind of a little bit for everybody there.
Yeah, and it's not a great class, to be honest with you. Cole Bishop from Utah, to me, is really appealing. I've been focusing on their other safety quite a bit. Vaitai, I think is his name. I just want to make sure. Kai, I'm sorry. The two Miami dudes both really hurt themselves, except, well, I don't know if they hurt themselves, but they both were unimpressive for this group. But James Williams is really a linebacker convert turned safety, where Kitchens, everyone's talking about being him a high safety. Neither one, they had similar workouts, but with different way of looking at the two of them.
Right. For James Williams, you're 6'4",
yeah.
230. It was just like, oh, well, you're going back to linebacker.
Yeah, and you're a good athlete for a linebacker.
Right. So you're fine there. But Cameron Kitchens, of the safeties, maybe, the guy that maybe hurt himself the most, 5'11", 203. Yeah. A lot of people really like him too. And look, the tape is the tape. Just because you ran 4.65 the combine doesn't mean you're going to. That was the 49ers safety who got hurt this year. And now I'm blanking on his name. Dude, this is what happens to me every single offseason. I get new Hufanga. I get new prospects in my head. I forget my own kids' names. Like, there's not enough room for 300 more names in my head. It's crazy.
Yep.
Yesterday I couldn't think of Micah Parsons' name. Today I couldn't think of Talnoa Hufanga's name.
And you cover the Niners,
If you play like a maniac, it's okay if you run 4.6. If you play fast, it just means that you get a better. If you love the guy's tape, and you love the player, you love the way they're wired, you just get a better deal on them in the draft.
Yep. I like the Georgia guys as well. They can both play slot. They're versatile. They did nothing to hurt themselves. But along those lines, BP, it's funny. I spent 4 or 5 nights in Indy, and every year I'm like, oh man, now I'm so behind on the combine because I've been there not watching it, or I've been on the air. So I'm just going to spend this entire weekend watching all the stuff I DVR'd, because I'm behind on the combine.
So those are the standouts, the risers, a few fallers as well from the 2024 Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. Matt, I'm sure, has some more nuggets to share with us throughout the week. We are going to come back Monday, talk about all the standouts on the offensive side of the ball, as well as the draft season rolls on and rolls on with haste. Now, other news as well around the league that is going to come out of Indy. So this is going to be a fun week here, getting close to free agency now as well. And Matt will be here every day, covering it all for you right here. Peacock and Williamson.